Welcome to Shawn's Life, episode 8/21, 2017. I remember getting up early. It was a warm yet cool, soothing kind of morning. That morning whenever you wake up and you step outside and the air is crisp and you can hear the birds chirping, yet there is a raw kind of vibe to your environment. We got up, we got dressed, and we headed down to see the doctor. Our appointment was at 8 a.m., and so we wanted to make sure that we were there on time. We traveled down to the hospital and parked our car, and the sunlight above was beginning to warm, and I could feel its heat against my flesh as we headed on in towards the building. There was some conversation between my companion and I. I was nervous, and we walk in and we follow the directions and find where we need to go specifically, and we take the elevator up, and the first area that we exit is this long hall. Every door is closed and locked. We look about, and it seems unusual that we are there right at 8 and no one is there. Well, I need to use the restroom, so I excuse myself, and I splash some water on my face, wash my hands, and then stroll back out. And whenever I return, I see that the office is open. I go inside, and I see that my companion is sitting there, and she's looking about the room. I take a glance over. To the left from the door, it appears as though they have the infusion room right there across the way from the doctor's office. There is zebra-striped posters here and there. It feels kind of like a doctor's office, but a little bit more welcoming. I sit down. She takes a few pictures. She takes a picture of me. The receptionist comes out and asks me to begin to fill out some paperwork. I asked if the doctor's here, and she says that he's not here yet. I begin to fill out the paperwork. There is so much paperwork, it's ridiculous. In the paperwork, they asked me to answer questions that only someone who's seen a net specialist could answer. I try to fill them out, and after about 10 minutes, the nurse invites me in. I haven't filled it all out yet. I tell her. She says it doesn't matter. They do that weighing thing, the measuring of height, take my blood pressure. Then she takes us into the room where we sit. I sit down. I set all my stuff beneath my chair, and her and I, my companion, we converse. I'm excited. Finally, after all this time, I have a chance to speak with someone who actually knows about my cancer. Some time goes by, we wait and we wait. Whenever he enters, he greets us. He seems moderately friendly, but there's a certain air about him. There's this vibe like there's somewhere else he needs to be, and he's in a rush. We begin to talk. He knows very little, if anything at all, and I ask him whether or not he has reviewed my medical history, and he says no. And he hasn't had a chance to look over the scans and tests. He hasn't looked over the pathology results specifically, because pathology hasn't even looked at the tumor slides I sent weeks ago. When he greets me, he asks me where I came from. This was disheartening. To realize that whenever I told him that I am from St. Louis, he was surprised. He didn't know I had traveled quite a distance to see him. So I asked him what inspired him to become a neuroendocrine specialist. And his answer was, when I came to this hospital, there weren't any openings for the job that I had. They needed a neuroendocrine specialist, and so I became one. chose that title. And for the last 4 or 5 years, that's what I've been doing. Hearing this was another layer of disheartening. I came specifically to see another doctor. This was not the doctor I scheduled my appointment to see. I was supposed to come and see an actual specialist, someone who is renowned for their work in the neuroendocrine field, not some guy who chose this as a backup job. Someone who, when I asked him questions that I knew the research to, that I knew the answers to, he answered incorrectly. Another person who told me to not research my cancer, that I should put trust and faith in someone I just met when this person hasn't even reviewed any of my medical history. I traveled all of this way, spent all of this money, to sit before a man who wasn't even willing to take a few moments to review my medical history, to actually do his job. We spoke, and by the end of it, I was frustrated. I was heartbroken. And so, we left. The New Orleans trip was a beautiful one. It was the beginnings of something that would lead to a catalyst that would forever change my life. I don't exactly even understand some of the things that went on whenever I was in New Orleans, but it was a life lesson. It was a series of moments that educated me. It taught me that if you want the care that you deserve, you have to force it. You have to demand it. No longer can you idly sit and expect a result. Now, mind you, I wasn't simply idly sitting. Even then, I was pushing, and to get even to New Orleans was so hard, so challenging, so difficult. Every step of the journey was a nightmare, and its results were another nightmare. Afterwards, I reflected on it. I looked at my pain, and I said, there is value to this pain. The value to this pain is I can teach others how to avoid the pitfalls, or perhaps not even avoid, but instead see what could happen. I had a terrible experience with the NET team in Louisiana. And I'm lumping that NET team together because they allowed this to happen. They allowed a doctor to see a patient from out of state without having that doctor look at the medical records, without them looking at the records from the tests and scans that were taken there. Their pathology team had the slides and scans for a considerable period of time, yet still did not review them. And even now, I have not received the results of any of it. So what do we learn from this? We learn that there is a means to set up an appointment. There are ways to demand the service we deserve. And in my next journey, my planning to go to Colorado, I'm going to take the things I learned from New Orleans, from the pain experience, from the ignorance of others, the laziness, push forward with it, and let's see if it actually works. And each day as I set up this trip to Denver, I'm going to share with you everything that I experienced, the thoughts, the feels, the challenges. I want you to have an idea of what it's like, so that if you're ever there, you have a means to think through it more effectively than I. I can share with you what I learn, I can share with you what I experience, but these are not universal answers or truths for you. Our wisdom comes from the inside. And I have faith that you will find greater wisdom within yourself as you hold on to hope, as you explore your wisdom through critical thought, and you push forward with force of will.